Alrighty, got something very interesting and something I'm got to try figuring out. I mean, I basically know what it needs, or I do know what it needs, but part of it's going to be practically impossible. But let's show you exactly what's going on. So this is the billet Lamborghini for Houston Crossed, and we've had similar problems here, and we've just had to go up on higher weight oils. But I thought I would give you the uh, direct thing that is happening here. So this is billet aluminum block, billet aluminum girdle main cap, one-piece main cap. All right. So what we're going to show you is how much the block grows and increases bearing clearance. Okay. So our gauge currently is set up at crankshaft size. Here's the crankshaft. All right. Crank is set up at the gauge is set up at crankshaft size. So what you're reading here is clearance. That is 1 and 8/10. Oops, sorry. 1 and 8/10. 1 and 8/10. As Mitchell's going down and checking each bearing. 1 and 8/10. And then 8/10, maybe 7/10. 1 and 7/10. That's 7/10. That's 1,000. So just so you know, this is 0. This is 1,000ths. That would be 2,000ths clearance. That would be 1.5 thousandths clearance at that hash mark, and so that's 1 and 8/10 clearance, and 1 and 8/10. 1 and that one's a little bit tighter. 1 and 6/10. And on the outside of the bearing, 1 and 8/10. Okay, so that's very acceptable. I mean, you're talking tenths of a thousandth of an inch, not a thousandth of an inch, a tenth of a thousandth of an inch. So this block right now is 65 degrees, stone cold. Been sitting in the shop all night. So what we're going to do is use the old torpedo heater and heat up the block. We'll rotate it over a few times. I'll show you that, and get this into it, and then let it settle, and try to get this block up into pretty close to 200, which it would normally operate at. Actually, it operates a little bit higher temperature than that. And then we'll go right back in with the gauge still set up at the exact same number on the crankshaft and show you what the bearing clearance grows to. There you go. You can see the thing's just blowing hot air. And we'll let it sit there for just a few minutes and then roll it over so we're heating both sides and try to get it all nice. Alright, let's check some temperature. That's why I will let this thing settle in. That's why I keep on rotating it around. Settle in. It's still not very hot. You can see it's up in the 160 to 170 range. So top here and check temperature. So I think we're pretty darn close. We're gonna let it settle in. And while we're letting it settle in, Huey, look on the floor. Look. The tormenting of dogs. He's gonna pounce on it. Ah. Alright. Now we're gonna let this just settle in, just let it rest for a second. Try to equalize the heat. I think we're pretty consistent in the. It's always infrared heat guns hate shiny surfaces, so like it says it's 84 right there because it's shiny, it reflects off, and not 84 obviously because I can't hardly touch it. But we can come down here on dull surfaces, including the main bearing itself. And we're not going to be able to get this up to 200 like I was hoping. That one's a little shiny. I think we're going to be able to get it up to about 100. And after it settles down, just kind of heat soaks in. Looks like it's going to be at about 150. Let's see. Yep. The cylinder bore, for some reason, does giving me a better temperature. 160s, 160s. So pretty solid. 155 to 160 degrees. Let's look over here. Yeah, 57, 62. And 50, yeah, 50. Let's see how temperature dog is. 94. All right. All right, let's check it out. Now, we're hot, 150 to 160. Yeah, and now, this thing is now 4.5. 4 and 3.
I want to touch the block, it's real hot.
Yeah. 4.5, 4 6/10. Yeah. 4 and 4/10, 4 and 6/10. So, long story short, at 150 to 160 degrees, the main clearance has opened up to 4.5 thousandths. So I would calculate out, since I can't get this block to 200 degrees easily, I'm not going to bother getting it to 200 degrees. We're already proven out that it's growing, and it's obviously going to grow more. I'm sure I could reinvent the wheel and come up with some ways of making exactly 200 with hot water and all sorts of, I mean, there's a lot of things you can do, but we don't need to do that. We're just proving that out. So what you have to think about here is, okay, and what the problem is with these Lamborghinis is that you are oil pump limited. It has a stock oil pump, and the stock oil pump is a big deal and a mother of a thing to deal with, and it's not adjustable. It doesn't have enough volume for these type motors. It should be more. I think the best process somewhere down the road here is going to be an exterior pump or a outside pump that will be able to put bigger pressure section in it that will flow more oil. So what we're seeing here is as the block heats up, oil clearance gets bigger in the main. As it gets bigger in the main, the rod doesn't. The rod gets minimally bigger because the rod is steel. And so it gets minimally bigger. All the oil pressure squirts out from the mains and doesn't go up to the rod. Now, in the ideal world, it would stay smaller. It would clearances would all stay correct, and it would force oil up to the connecting rod appropriately. Here, it still does, but when we have these great big clearances like this, we got to run a really heavyweight oil because the block grows so much and oil pressure goes away. If you really try to run a very lightweight oil in here, it definitely doesn't have enough oil pump in it, wouldn't maintain oil pressure. But I can't shrink up the main clearance anymore to account for it being hot, because if it was stone cold, it would just lock up the crank. So if I made this thing, it's 4 thousandths right now at 150, and let's say it's 5 thousandths at 200, has 5 thousandths of bearing clearance at 200 degrees because it's growing. The aluminum material is swelling. It is going to do that. Let's say my goal was to have 2 thousandths of main clearance, or even 3 thousandths of main clearance. I can't shrink this down 2 thousandths because on a cold start, it would have 0 and it would just be locked up, destroy the bearing. So, and it's not a practical application to have any of these Lamborghini customers in this application sit there and preheat their engine before they start it. It'd be great if you could. That'd be always beneficial. A lot of people, a lot of racing functions do that. These kind of applications, and depending on the customer, are just not going to happen. So this is one of those areas where we have to take the happiest compromise. Our only compromise in this is try to get the main clearance as tight as possible, cold, and to account for the heat growth and have appropriate weight oil. They still have to get the oil hot because they still have to flow. You can't run on cold 50 weight oil, but there's just compromises that have to be made here. Now, like I said, this is Houston Crosta's engine, and what we had done was, like we like to do, and we always do on the Lamborghini stuff, is after we get done running them, we like to check things out. And as we checked things out, we saw these bearings just weren't as perfect as what we wanted them to be. So it's like, we got to go through here and check this out. We saw that it was making it like 90 to almost 100 pounds oil pressure going into the motor. But I think most all of that is actually just squirting out the block. Nothing's wrong. It doesn't hurt anything. We're going to make one more modification in the block. But those are the kind of things that we do here, is we want to, after it's run, we want to check things out, make sure it's all cool. On this particular one, what we're going to do is we're changing this up a little bit, and we're doing a different oil passage in it to try to make the oil flow better yet. And then I'm going to re-dyno it. Then we'll retake the pan back off of it and check it all out again. That's all no charge to Houston, because we want to make sure that things are correct. So when we run them here, that's what we can do. A lot of times if we can't run them, you send out an engine that we don't run here, or somebody else finishes, puts the EFI on, does the tune-up, does everything, oil system, and I'm not involved in it. It's really hard to look at or take care of any kind of issues. So anyways, that is really good information. Keep thinking about that, of how you would do that. If we made the oil clearance right at operating temperature, it would lock up cold. So the only the best option for that, like on our SMXs, is more oil pump. You just have to move more oil. You have to have more volume there to take care of that kind of issue to maintain the bearing clearances. So something very interesting for all you guys. I'll show you the oil pump here. This is the Lamborghini oil pump. This entire unit is part of the oil pump and heat, cooling, dry sump. As of anything we have found so far, there's no way of increasing. Let's see, which one is the pressure section here? I think this is the pressure section. That's the pressure section. Okay, this is the pressure section of increasing the pressure section here, which someday is probably the thing that really needs to happen. Anyways, I am Steve Morse. Have a great day. So this, just to be clear, so this oil pump is, when I talk about bigger oil pump, I mean a larger section. We're not talking about increasing the pressure by closing the bypass. It's not on the bypass. It's not using the bypass at all. It doesn't have enough pump in order to come up against the bypass. So it needs a physically wider section, a physically larger pump in here in order to flow more oil. We can flow more oil and then it will build pressure. When you are losing oil pressure, or the oil pressure is a little bit down from what you'd like to see it, and you have to put thicker oil in it, it is typically because you have not enough oil pump for the oil clearance that is in the crankshaft or is in the tire motor. So just a little bit of tech there, trying to help people understand how it's going, or what's going on here. And there's some things that are just not repairable. It's some things that we're just going to have to keep a track of, monitor, and be careful with. And these big high horsepower engines of Lamborghinis or anything. You know, keep in mind too, this is all water pump stuff. So I mean, just throwing a new oil pump on it in the package of a Lamborghini is tough. It's not just something you just bolt on like in a regular race car. So anyways, a little more information.